Greetings and welcome to this special edition of Campus Conversations. I'm Dan Mogulof from the Campus Office of Communications and Public Affairs. Today's event is the second in a series of 4 virtual town halls focusing on Berkeley's plans for the road ahead and your questions about those plans. Last week, we got an overview from the Chancellor and Provost, and tomorrow we'll be talking about restarting Berkeley's research enterprise. And then on Thursday, that event will be all about student life and engagement, everything from plans for residential living to financial aid. But today we're talking about decisions concerning the university's heart and soul, instruction and learning. We have with us an excellent panel of campus leaders, each of whom played a key role on the committee that was tasked with instructional planning for the fall. Paul Alivasatos is the Executive Vice Chancellor and Provost. Professor Oliver Riley is the chairperson of our academic senate. Cathy Koshland is the vice chancellor for undergraduate education, and Lisa García Bedolla is vice provost for graduate studies and dean of the graduate division. I will, at the end of this event, provide information about the upcoming discussions and about where you can go for updated, detailed information about every aspect of the fall semester and for answers to any questions we don't have time for today. Paul, let me start with you. And for those who may not have read all the campus messages, give us a brief summary of what has been decided insofar as instruction is concerned on the Berkeley campus come fall.
Thank you, Dan. And I'd like to first welcome all those who are new to the Berkeley community, as well as everyone who is returning. And we so much appreciate your coming to this forum. Dan, it's interesting that you say what has been decided, because if there's one thing we have to say up front and we have to repeat as many times as we possibly can, is that this is a period of enormous uncertainty. And we will use the principle of protecting public health, and within that, also doing everything that we can to provide instruction at the absolute highest Berkeley level quality that we can. We have made some directional decisions for the fall, the largest one being that classes will be offered remotely unless they involve student activities that are involving students of 25 activities with numbers of students of 25 or fewer, and those activities which we can accommodate physically with the social distancing and other requirements that we have. So we will be offering most of our instruction remotely, but some of it will be available in person for those who are able and who choose to come to the campus. But for every class, for every student who is unable to be with us in person, we will have a remote equivalent as well.
Thank you, Cathy. I want to come to you with the next question, and we're going to be diving in. We've received dozens and dozens of questions from students and parents. No surprise, given the newness of all this and all the uncertainty. But on the broadest level, many people seem to be wondering: should they take a semester off? Is this worth continuing? How exactly is this going to proceed? Is this what I signed up for with Berkeley? What's your message to parents and students who are posing those kind of questions?
I think those are really good questions. And I think in the end, it is a decision that is made by each family as to what is the best option for their students. I would say that this is not the time to delay the start of one's college education. This pandemic is likely to last for at least a couple of years. And it's not just a one semester decision you're making. You're actually making a decision for the next several years, some of which will be in this pandemic environment and some of which we hope will be back to more normal situations. So my strong advice is, unless there are really mitigating circumstances that make it impossible for you to start or continue your education, you really should not delay it. And then the decision is whether you come to campus or whether you remain where you are. And that, again, is a family decision to be made.
So we're going to be going into greater detail about all of this, but Oliver, let me come to you again with what is really a broader question. A A lot of the comments that we've received so far are concerns because of what students experienced during the spring semester in terms of online or remote learning, and we'll talk about the difference between those two as we go on. What have we learned from the spring, and how is that going to be applied in the fall?
Well, first of all, great question, Dan. I would like to point out that what happened in the spring was just extraordinary. Everyone started off the beginning of the spring semester expecting classes to be held in person. Instructors expected exams to be held in person. The curriculum was established, expectations were raised, and then in the middle of March, a shelter-in-place order was imposed on the Burke and the County of Alameda, and everything changed overnight. So modes of instruction switched to remote immediately. And students had to leave. Most students left the campus and went home. Faculty went to their homes. Many of them had to look after young children and homeschool at the same time. The challenges were pretty immense. But the campus did a heroic job thanks to the staff, students and instructors and administration. I feel like we all worked together. Now we've all learned a lot as well. And so several groups have been established to look at to learn some lessons and find plans going forward. For instance, this summer, 300 graduate students are being given fellowships so that they can improve their ability to deliver remote instruction and partner with faculty to deliver better courses in the fall. New tools are being employed by the campus, and also workshops are being held throughout the summer to help faculty return in the fall and do a better job of remote instruction for those who will be teaching remotely. So I feel like we've learned a lot. Is there a ways to go? Absolutely. Is there going to be, but we have to continually improve. Just like in the fall of 2018, we had to deal with the air quality issues and had to shut the campus down. In the fall of 2019, we had to deal with PG&E power outages, which now seem like a picnic compared to dealing with COVID-19. And then in the spring, we've had to deal with COVID-19. But I feel like we've become stronger as a community. I feel like we've learned our lessons. And also I feel like we're capable of changing, and we know we need to change. And we also need to know that we need to leave a little bit of gas in the tank, because we're going to have to be flexible in the fall. We will have to pivot. There will be issues that have come up that we haven't thought about already, and students will raise issues that instructors haven't done. But I feel like we've learned a lot, and we've also learned the importance of communication from instructors to students, but also communication from students to instructors. And those avenues need to be very crystal clear and emphasized going forward in the fall. For instance, in the class I'm teaching, I'm going to emphasize to my students that I've tried to think of everything possible, but there are things I will have missed. So they should tell me what I've missed, and then we'll come together and find a plan going forward.
So before I turn to Lisa with a question about graduate students, I want to push you a little bit. Oliver, what are some of the lessons we've learned? What are some of the tools that you're referring to specifically?
So we're learning how to use B courses better. We're learning how to use our learning management system better. We're learning more about Zoom and how people get exhausted on it. We're learning more that we need to make a much better effort to engage with students. We're also learning that there's limits to how we can do that, and we need to build a better structure to support our students. We're learning how we need to do closed captioning. We're learning how we need to do a better job of accommodating students with accommodations. So we're working on developing a training for faculty on disabled students program, and a set of FAQs that will help them say, yes, you can do this. No, you can't do this. And for our students, we're saying, here are avenues that you can go to directly to get help and guidance if issues come up. So those are just a handful of the things that we were looking at. There are lots more. We've also reorganized all of our online material to help instructors. We've given instructors checklists to prepare them for the fall. We've also given students checklists that they need to look at and that they need to deal with. And I think what we're really trying to do here is to emphasize that the Berkeley community, the Cal family, has done an amazing job helping the campus through the spring semester. And we'll strengthen that and do an even better job in the fall.
Thanks. So,
Dan, can I jump in here?
Please, go right ahead.
I just wanted to add a couple of things to what Oliver was saying. In addition to the 300 graduate students that are in this fellowship program, we have over 440 faculty who have signed up for our course called the Remote Instruction Guide through B Courses. That's a staggering number when you think about where we were before. So that faculty is joined by over 30 faculty who are getting specialized training in converting their gateway courses to online instruction, more fully online, not just remote, but true online pedagogy that should improve the learning experience for students in those courses. And so that brings you to almost 500 faculty who are deeply engaged in this, as well as the many faculty who've already developed a lot of these skills. So the investment by Berkeley faculty in instruction says something about our commitment to delivering the best possible experience for our students. I want to add one more thing, which is our advisors, both academic and co-curricular, are doing a lot of work to increase their capacity to advise remotely, to provide tutoring remotely. So there's efforts going on in the academic support areas that match those that are going on in the instruction area.
Great, thanks for that. Very helpful additional information. Lisa, just now Oliver was talking about the Cal family, and in your role as the Dean of the Graduate Division, you know that in fact many graduate students learn the most from each other, and that engagement with each other, how important that is, and that sense of community. Talk to us a little bit about how you're thinking about that and how we can provide for community and those interactions, which are such an important part of a graduate education and an undergraduate education for that matter.
Well, as you said, that's critical, Dan, and speaking to what Oliver said, this is one of the things we learned in the spring, is that informal communication, the communication outside the classroom, the connections that happen with students, the conversations that continue after class about whatever they were talking about in seminar, those are really key aspects of the educational experience for our students. And so we have a student experience committee that's working on how to the best of our ability, replicate that more idiosyncratic, serendipitous interaction that students really know is key to their experiences, both at the graduate level and the undergraduate level. And so that the idea that we're figuring this out as we go, that we are doing our best to imagine how to leverage technology in order to replicate those experiences that would happen in person. But also we want to make sure that our students know we are open to suggestion. If there are things, platforms, particular approaches that seem to be working, it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all solution. We have 12,000 graduate students, 40,000 undergraduate students, or 34,000, sorry. We have a huge community, many different departments, many different types of areas of research. And so we are looking to be nimble and to be creative and to continue to grow and learn so that we can give our students the support they need to thrive, whatever their educational goal may be.
Super, thanks. Paul, I want to come back to you, and we're going to start now to engage with some of the dozens of questions that have come in from parents and students, and many of them have to do with timing. Simple basic question is, when are we going to know? When are we going to know how our class is going to be held, to what degree it will be hybrid? When can we register? What do we know about the timing of decisions and steps in the registration process to come?
Yeah, thank you. So I can give you our sense of what the dates are right now. I do want to repeat, as I did earlier, that there's uncertainty around so many things right now. So we're going to work to do our very best to give you information as quickly as we can. Here's what we have for our timeline. We are now, we received about 10 days ago from every department and every part of the campus that offers a class, their plan for how they would think the best use of the, we're going to have a limited ability to offer in-person instruction. So we've asked every place that teaches on the campus to give us their best view of which are the courses which should be most highly prioritized. And we've been working with those, trying to find how we can manage to offer as many of those as possible. So we're in the midst of that right now. Really this afternoon, for example, we have a long session with many of the people on this call and others to really work our way through all of those. We're making very good progress on them. We expect on July 1st to have a preliminary list of courses which we have approved provisionally, because public health could change, but which we have approved provisionally to be offered with a component that is in person. And many of those will, as of July 1st, be available on the registrar website to see. And I believe you linked at some point, or you will be linking, Dan, later, to a list of websites that people can access for that. Those will start to appear, the courses as we know that they're available, but the registrar website will have those, and by July 1st, we imagine we'll have worked through that list. And then those will all have their schedule, their exact schedule of classes and classrooms that will be used by July 8th. I hope people can appreciate just how complicated this is, because normally the university has a roughly similar set of offerings and timings, but now that's all having to change because of the changes in how classrooms can be used. So by July 8th, we should really have the vast majority of classes with their schedule and their room available for people, for those who are able to be in person and make that decision. Between July 8 and 10, we anticipate that we'll have the phase 1 enrollment period for continuing undergraduate students, those who have already been with us for some period of time. And on July 14, new undergraduate student registration will begin. July 20th is when we will have the second round of enrollment for continuing students. August 21st is when tuition and fees will be due for fall of 20. And the first day of classes will be August 26th.
Wow. So there's something I'm actually confused I'm actually confused about, and I think a number of people are, because of the questions that we're getting from parents and students, which is, will every class offered to undergraduates be available both in person and online, or will some be just one or the other? Paul.
So Dan, the majority of instruction is going to take place remotely, and the majority of classes will take place remotely. We only can offer a certain fraction of the classes in person. And even every single class that is offered in person, or I should say activity, because sometimes we may break classes up into smaller groupings for some in-person activities. But every class, the departments have been asked that whenever, for every kind of instruction, that they have a plan for how a student who cannot be present for whatever reason, how that student can continue to make good progress towards their degree. So I hope that gives a feeling for it. Most classes will be remote, but a fraction will have an in-person activity. But if it's not possible to be at the in-person activity, there will be a remote alternate or an alternate pathway so that the student can continue to make progress academically.
So Oliver, let me turn to you with a follow-up question. Do we have any idea yet what percentage of Berkeley's regular classes will still be offered and how many we may not be able to offer?
So we are offering 6,000 classes next semester. And so the list that Paul has been talking about is about 940 classes or 940 activities. We're still
about 15%, right?
Yeah. So we're still going through that list. Some of them are in person, and we're having a meeting this afternoon. So I think it's too premature at this point to give figures. We're just going through it pretty carefully right now.
And from a faculty member's perspective, or from the kind of discussions you've been having in your committee about instruction, what will the factors be that will determine whether a class is online only, or hybrid, or mostly in person? What are the criteria you're using to make those decisions, Oliver?
First of all, the request went out to all departments. So the faculty and their departments work together to come up with a set of courses that they would like to deliver in person, or activities they would like to deliver in person. Those 945 activities are now given to a group consisting of most people on this call and about 7 or 8 others. We're going through that list carefully to see if it's possible to offer the class if it's not our first priority is if it's not possible to deliver this class remotely. Second is to see if it builds cohorts, if it develops, fosters community on campus. And then we start, once it goes through those filters, then we start looking at where can it be located? What are the rooms that are available? All of these activities are all less than 26 people, including the instructor. And so then once the set of classes are accepted, then it becomes a matter of logistics. Is there space for the class? Is there enough room? Is there ingress, egress? Is there going to be cleaning, etc.? And so those are the details that are being worked out. So that's why this process is taking an extended period of time.
Can I amplify on that, Oliver, if I may? Just to be clear about that first category, what we're talking about are things like, let's say, certain laboratory classes, field work. We may have an example of art studios, things like that, where we can make some kinds of remote equivalents, but the consensus of the faculty that are offering those courses is that they're just qualitatively much, much more appropriate to have as an in-person activity. And those are prioritized high. But we've asked every unit to tell us if you can only have a limited amount of in-person instruction, what are the points where the students will benefit the most by using our finite ability to offer in-person classes? Where for your program, where's that point? And that's why Oliver mentioned the cohort building. Sometimes an in-person activity is of a particular importance to building the community that is learning together, teaching and learning together around a particular program. And so they could prioritize that specific one, and then that we'll pay great attention to try to make sure that we're offering just the best learning experience to the students that we can, given the restrictions.
Got it. Cathy, I want to come to you with the next question. We're getting a lot of questions about logistics, but I actually want to focus for a second on the content, on the nature, on the value of online or distance learning. And I'd actually like you to explain the difference between the two. But let me share with you what I think is an emblematic question. Will every class be required to offer online instruction options? How will professors be held accountable for providing equal, if not more, resources for remote students? How are you going to guarantee that students are getting an engaging world-class education and the support they need to be successful in their courses?
So that's a challenging question. I'll say two things. One, that students who have challenges in terms of their technology equipment, we have a student tech fund, and students can apply for resources to make sure that they are able to participate, whether they're actually living in Berkeley or in the res halls, or whether they're living at home. If they have financial need, there is a way to get the kind of equipment that they need. So that's one way we're working with our faculty, are asking that our students do have the right equipment. The investment we're making in training of faculty, and they're actually amazingly enthusiastic participation in doing that, I think speaks to the commitment of faculty to providing an excellent experience for students. That said, there is a difference between remote instruction and online instruction. What we did in the spring, for the most part, was remote instruction, where faculty simply took the course that they were teaching and switched to using Zoom and recording their lectures, and everything else more or less being the same. When you build an online course from the ground up, there's a whole art and science of teaching online and a pedagogy associated with that is different than just simply moving to a remote means of delivery. And we have a number of courses. We have 30 courses we teach in the summer that have been developed that way. the investment we're making this fall in another 30 courses means that there will be a suite of courses that have much stronger pedagogy associated with being a truly online experience. We are also boosting the capability of folks who are doing the more classic, the remote instruction piece, improving, as Oliver said earlier, improving faculty's facility with B courses, using digital resources, learning how to use the tools so that you can do both synchronous and asynchronous delivery. That means either in the same time zone or for students who are in different time zones, ways to reach them and engage them. So there are a number of different strategies that faculty will be employing. Our graduate student instructors will be also employing those same strategies to make discussion sessions robust. And again, trying to give the best possible experience for students, regardless of where they are in geographically.
So I want to go, hang on one sec, Paul. I want to actually go around the room, I was going to say, though we're not actually in a room, about this very question. But I just see we're getting a lot of questions coming in about housing, and that's something we're going to be engaging in Thursday evening. So we're going to leave housing questions to the side. Just want to let everybody know that. And asking you to join us on Thursday evening at 5 o'clock, and I'll give information a little bit later on at the end of this event about that particular event. But Paul, go ahead, talk to us.
I just wanted to ask Lisa to speak, if she could, to the issue of the amazing, I think, a really wonderful program that's been created for our graduate student instructors. Lisa, could you just speak to it?
Yeah, so we created what we're calling the Graduate Remote Instruction Innovation Fellowship. And I think the number of students who have jumped in and the number who are doing different versions of this on campus really speak to Cathy's point that everyone on campus is really dedicated to ensuring that students in the fall have the best possible instruction. So this program just started this morning. They had their first class of over 300 students that are fellows, and then they're also cooperating with another 24 fellows in the School of Public Health and some other folks in the College of Environmental Design. And they are going to be taking a course this week in online pedagogy and learning what are the best strategies and practices to ensure not only delivery of content, but making sure that content is inclusive and accessible to all students. Thinking deeply about how to provide resources, how to conduct assessments, how to ensure accessibility, how to do exactly what Cathy was just talking about, but provide both asynchronous and synchronous opportunities for students to engage with the material. And then they are also going to have the opportunity to be introduced to all the different tools that are available to them in order to actually instantiate that work. And so they will be spending 8 weeks this summer looking deeply at the courses that they're going to be teaching, but also really expanding their repertoire as instructors so that we know that they're doing the best possible job in terms of their teaching. And we have to remember that GSIs in general teach in teams. And so we have 55 departments represented in this group, all of whom will be working with other students and will be able to share that information with their teams. And we also will be creating a research page for the whole campus so that the learning that they're developing this summer can be distributed to all instructors on campus, again, to really ensure that the fall instruction is as good as it possibly can be.
Let me follow up with as long as we're talking about graduate students, a question that came in here, and that is, will GSIs and actually faculty, this person's asking about, have the option to work remotely and not hold in-person sections if they prefer not to because of the pandemic?
The short answer is yes.
Maybe I can speak to that. I think all people who work on the campus are facing challenges, and they vary enormously, from people who may be immunocompromised to situations where there are dependents that are causing, really that people need to be at home and so on. So there are just any number of reasons why people who would normally be in person on the campus may not be able to come. And that's true not just for the instructor community, it's true for our wonderful staff. We have an amazing dedicated staff on the campus, and many of them also are facing situations where they're not able to come. So in all of these cases, first of all, we're asking people, for the most part, if there's no need for them to be on the campus, then they should in fact stay home. because we're trying, of course, to follow our public health guidance and to keep the density on the campus low. But if there's a work that really is substantially requiring in-person presence, and somebody is for one reason or another feels that they're not able to do that, then they should speak with their supervisor. In the case of the instructor, it's with their department chair, and have a conversation about what their circumstances are. We remain committed to offering in-person instruction for the areas where it makes the most sense for the instruction to be in person. And if for some reason an instructor is not able to do that, as a community, we're committed to finding an instructor who can. So I hope that answers it. We really want to be respectful of each person's needs, but we also want to advance instruction for our students so that they have the right experiences, and we will work with people to balance those.
Thanks. I want to turn now to labs and libraries, and then after that, I want to talk about freshmen. We have a number of questions from incoming freshmen and their parents, but first, labs and libraries, because we've really been talking mostly about the classroom environment. So what are the plans for labs? What are the plans for classes where that it would seem that the in-person experience is an essential and inherent part of the instruction? Oliver, do you want to take that one first?
Yeah, so my department, for instance, is gathering a kit that it will be sending out to students to try every student, and so hoping to recreate some of the lab experience that way. We're currently reviewing requests for labs from various departments. We are also, departments are also coming up, developing alternatives to in-person labs. The College of Chemistry in particular has done a phenomenal job on this. So people are trying to figure out workarounds for this issue, but it is a concern. Yes, no, there's no question about that.
Lisa, do you have anything to add? Because I know obviously for graduate students, particularly in the STEM fields, this is something we're getting a lot of questions about, a lot of concerns about accessing, about whether it's safe, about cleaning, how do we know it's going to be safe? How can we engage in those activities that seem to be absolutely dependent on being in a lab someplace on campus?
Well, as was said, the lab ramp up has been done with incredible thought and care and planning, and is being done in a phased manner, taking into consideration all of the public health guidelines. I do think it's important, though, for us to not talk about safety per se. The reality is there is no way 100% to ensure that people will not be exposed. It's just not possible in the current environment, but we will do everything possible to make certain that there are protocols in place, that distancing guidelines are in place, that people are provided with the materials that they need in order to engage in their research. We also understand that for many, especially graduate students who are at the end of their career or for postdocs, it's really important for them to get back into the lab. And so, as Paul mentioned with instruction, it's really finding that balance between ensuring that folks are able to go forward with their work in the way that they need to, but doing so in a way that's thoughtful, that's careful, that takes into consideration all the possible precautions, and that works with folks to make sure that they're comfortable with whatever they're being asked to do in terms of work within labs.
Can I say on that, Dan, for example, as a scientist myself in chemistry, my colleagues and my research group colleagues returned to the laboratory on Saturday after 3.5 months. And it was a very emotional moment for them to be able to return. But also, I'm so proud of what they did to do really interesting and important work during the shutdown. And I'm also really impressed by the care that they've taken to fashion a plan so that the work in the laboratory is done in a way that lets all the, as many people continue to progress, but is also just very careful to not not in any way go past what the guidelines of public health authorities are giving us. So I think the return to research is a whole topic you're going to have at our next meeting, and it's going very well.
What about libraries? Got a question here. How will educational resources usually found only within libraries and not online be accessible remotely? I'm not sure which one of you to turn to with this.
Well, we can all pitch in maybe. I mean, so the library community has developed a very careful plan for how to return to library use. There will be some library access for undergraduates, but it's going to be limited. It's not going to be, if you're a continuing student or somebody who has been on our campus, you'll know that you could go to Moffett Library at almost any time of day or night, and it would be just a beehive of activity. It's not going to be quite like that. We're going to have limited amounts of library space, and there will be physical distancing within it. The research part of the library is returning more systematically now. And one thing I know that the library community would appreciate if we said is that um, people are so used to wanting to access everything in the library electronically through just the websites that are available, or else just to go there physically to be able to have a place. Um, but there are so many challenges to get the information we need, whether a student or a researcher, and the librarians themselves really want to help. So if there's something you're trying to figure out how to do, if you contact one of the dozens of libraries on the campus, there are people there who will really try to help as much as possible. Maybe Cathy, you want to say some words about what's happening with the undergraduate access to the libraries?
I think the same thing. They're one of the tools that faculty have is to link all of the electronic resources through B courses so that students can access the materials easily. And again, the librarians are available for undergraduates who are engaged in research and want access to certain kinds of materials. Working with the librarians is something that they can do, and that's open to them. Again, the librarians are eager to provide those services to all students, undergrads, graduate students, and to faculty as well. There will be challenges in terms of we just cannot open all the library spaces because of the cleaning requirements, and that's one of the biggest impediments to opening more of the campus is actually our ability to make sure that spaces are clean.
I want to ask, and just throw this out, raise your hand. I'm not sure, again, which one of you is best positioned, but a real brass tacks question that we're getting a lot of them. So I want to get this on, put this right on the front burner. Here's an example. Will we be unenrolled from our current fall classes on July 8th once the list of online in-person courses are released and then have to enroll? A lot of questions about the registration process and class selection process. What can we tell them? People with these questions, where should they go for information in the weeks ahead? Which one of you could sort of grab this one?
So we're several faculty are working with the registrar on a set of FAQs for students. We hope to have it available early in July. So we're starting to work on that now. So questions like this will be answered, and we fully appreciate how timely and important these questions are and how important it is to get answers to the students. So we're not going to be talking about how many angels fit on a pinhead here. We're going to be getting this done pretty quickly.
And again, I will be sharing with everybody watching today the website for the registrar's office, but if you can't stay till the end, if you simply do a Google search for Registrar UC Berkeley, you will arrive at the site Oliver spoke of. And again, updated information about these detailed and important questions will be available there sometime around the end of the month. I want to turn now to freshmen, because I can imagine, it's hard to imagine sort of a population that is sort of been more tossed about by all that's happening in the world right now. You know, having looked forward to coming to college, the residential experience. And so let's get to a few questions that are coming from, I think, both incoming freshmen and their parents. And a lot of them go along these lines. Can my incoming freshman attend part-time if classes are online and she can't live on campus? I'd like her to take a lighter load considering the online learning mode. She learns much better with in-person classes. I do realize it would take her longer to graduate. What do we tell a parent with a question like that?
I'll take
Cathy.
that. So one of the things is for that student to talk with an advisor. Many students, especially for DSP purposes, get an accommodation where they take a lighter class load. So that is entirely possible, whether they're on campus or staying at home. So I would say academic advisor and also talk with the disabled students program, especially if one already has those kinds of accommodations in regular school. But those are the two avenues I would do: DSP and your academic advisor.
Staying with freshmen, so we have a lot of questions. We received a lot of questions about our fall program for freshmen, and here's an example. Our freshmen will be participating in the fall program 2020. We pay additional fees for smaller size classes because they allow for more interaction between students and professors. And won't these smaller classes, how will these smaller classes work in terms of social distancing, wearing masks? I don't see the reason for taking FPF if these classes become online. So a lot of questions about the value of FPF. Another person asked, will FPF students be able to take all the classes offered to the larger Berkeley community, and will the extra fee be waived, considering that none of the facilities will be utilized in the fall? Who's best positioned for these FPF questions to explain where we are and what we're doing? Cathy?
I actually don't have an answer for these. I think the FPF is managed by our University Extension, and Dean Diana Wu is the dean for that. We certainly can get her and her team to answer those questions and get them in the FAQ.
We should get them in the FAQ, but I do want to say, first of all, that the FPF program has worked extremely well, and students who have gone through it have had enormous benefit from it, and we've seen that over the years. And I don't know all the specific things that you asked about, Dan, but I do know that the group that's working on fall program for freshmen has really thought a lot about how to balance out the limited in-person activities with a lot of work on remote building of cohorts. And I just want to give an example that Cathy can speak to, but I think it's a broader question what we're talking about here. Really, the question is, how are we going to create community and a sense of belonging at Berkeley for people who are new and for freshman students on the campus? And that's something I just can't tell you how seriously and how much we really care about that issue, first of all. And to say that we've been doing a lot of work over years now to develop that whole set of programs, starting with Golden Bear orientation. And I just wonder, Cathy, if you could speak a little bit to the Golden Bear orientation, and then if we could speak a little bit just as a group ourselves about all the thinking that's going on and how to use some remote activities that will help create a sense of why Berkeley is so special. I think the freshmen are going to feel it, but it's not going to be done the usual way. So Cathy, can you speak to that?
Sure.
To the Golden Bear, yeah.
Yeah, so Golden Bear orientation will be, as you can imagine, almost entirely remote. The team that has worked on that started in late March or April to pivot the kinds of activities that we normally would do in person into a meaningful set of opportunities for students to get to know each other and to be parts of cohorts and get introduced to the campus. Part of that orientation has already started, our Golden Bear advising and other things which are always delivered online. And then we're adding to it beginning in late August, right before classes start. So I think that students will get oriented to the campus, will begin to form community that way. Academically, there are two really important programs that students can do as freshmen and also in some cases as transfer students. We strongly advise students to sign up for a Berkeley Connect. They're in 14 departments. It's a one-unit mentoring experience led by a senior graduate student. And it's a way to get oriented. They moved to online rapidly in March. The whole team has been working on providing tools and ways to make that meaningful for students. So I strongly encourage students to look for a Berkeley Connect. The second thing is if you can't find a Berkeley Connect or none of them interest you, There are freshman seminars, which are limited in size to about 15 students. They are offered all across the entire campus by faculty. They are a wonderful opportunity to get, again, to know a faculty member, to get to know a few other students, and to engage in a topic of interest. So Berkeley Connect and freshman seminars, I strongly advise as a way to create that intellectual and academic community. And later this week on Thursday, we'll talk more about the other ways in which students can build community.
So Oliver, we're talking a lot about community and sort of thinking about how we provide for this in-person engagement or person-to-person engagement. Got a lot of questions about office hours, about getting to know faculty, about what's going to happen with our ability as students are asking, to form those relationships that are so important for education, and letters and recommendation and all the rest. What's your advice to students who are concerned about that aspect of the university experience?
So my advice to all of those students is to go to office hours and start building the relationship there. Take advantage of the office hours. Also take advantage of topics that come up in class, look at them in a little more detail, and bring them to the attention of the instructor and start building that relationship. This is one of the issues that every undergraduate faces, is to build that connection with faculty and instructors so that when it comes time to asking for letters of recommendation, they can do that. So I strongly recommend taking complete advantage of office hours. There's many times I have office hours and no one shows up. And so it's really nice sometimes just to have one-on-one conversations with students. It's also possible to write to the faculty member and say, hey, could we meet, have a separate meeting? I would really like your advice on this problem or that problem, and just get a conversation going. Most faculty, students don't realize this, but many faculty also have to ask for letters of recommendation from their colleagues for promotions, for tenure, for awards. So the faculty understand that. They also have gone through that as themselves as undergraduates, asking for letters of recommendation. I still remember the 3 people who wrote letters of recommendation for me, and it was near 35. It was 35 years ago, and I'm still grateful to them. And I understand how important it is. And then finally, I'd like to say that I'll be giving a webinar on how to apply to graduate school in September, and everybody's welcome to attend that. And I talk about ideas in that webinar on how to approach faculty, the do's and don'ts of applying to graduate school, from lessons that I learned myself, because I applied to several graduate schools and didn't get in because I had no idea what the process was like. So I'm happy to share those stories with them.
Great. Oliver, let me stay with you here for a couple of more brass tacks type questions really quickly. One, will all exams be given remotely for classes? People are asking about exams and what we're planning in that regard.
Yeah, we anticipate that all exams will be given remotely. There may be some that won't. That depends on the in-person instruction classes. The campus is recommending that at Thanksgiving, that in-person instruction ends at Thanksgiving. And the reason for that is that we want to try and limit travel back and forth to the campus because of the pandemic. Many other schools are doing this throughout the country. And so one of the silver linings in all of this is that everyone on this call has been in touch with their counterparts, not just throughout the University of California, but also at schools throughout the country. And so we've all learned from each other. We've shared best practices. And this idea that no one is to limit travel after Thanksgiving really started in the East Coast schools, and it makes a lot of sense. And so that's one of the things we're doing. And the consequence of that is that finals will all be remote.
So we can't talk about exams without talking about grading, and we're getting a lot of questions about that, whether we're going to have a pass-fail set up in the fall, whether people are asking if there's going to be, quote, leniency, unquote, in terms of grading. Where do we stand about what's the grading posture and policy?
So the grading posture is that it will be the usual grading policy. The Senate does not anticipate having a pass no pass policy in the fall, and we're not recommending it for the summer either. However, we do have, as part of the work that we did in the spring, there's now a best practices for remote assessment and remote examinations that's on the Center for Teaching and Learning website. And these are lessons that we learned and best practices that we researched in the course of what happened during the spring semester. And Cathy Koshland and I have been on 3 task forces to help the campus prepare for this. And one of the recommendations is not to grade on a curve, to grade based on mastery. Grading on a curve is not always equitable for our students. And so what we're doing is we're really trying to promote an equitable grading system for all of our students. I know the College of Engineering is also running workshops on equitable grading as well, in a way, because we all appreciate that the pandemic has really exacerbated inequalities in our society, and also inequalities that some of our students face. And I think the campus is doing everything it can to try and reduce that. And certainly one of our guiding principles is to be as equitable as possible and not to exacerbate existing inequities and inequalities. And from what I've seen from all the work that's been done over the past month or two to help prepare the campus for the fall, that principle has been taken very seriously.
Oliver, it would seem that inherent in your answer is this belief and a conviction, maybe I'm wrong, that we can provide, in terms of quality, and equal education to those who will be in person and those who will be online. Do I have that right? Is that what our stance is?
Yeah, that's our commitment.
Powerful.
That's our commitment. And I think most instructors would love if this pandemic wasn't here, but it is here and we're going to deal with it. Instructors are committed to giving excellent education to our students. And that's just part of Berkeley. However, we have learned lessons and we will learn more lessons in the fall. And we have to be open to that. But most instructors take instruction very seriously and want to give an excellent education to the students. And that's our commitment.
Thank you. Lisa, let's go back to sort of the graduate student population. And I'm just thinking about the fact about how diverse it is. Academically, diverse in many ways, but academically, we go from the business school to engineering to the law school. How are the setups going to look different? Is it going to be one thing for the professional schools, different for others, size? How are we approaching all that?
So as Paul mentioned, we've really left it up to each local program to decide what they think is the best way to address the current situation. What are the things that their students absolutely need in order to be able to build their sense of cohort, to be able to access their education, to be able to be ready for whatever profession they're training for, to be able to move forward in their doctoral program. And so it's going to look different in law than it will in public policy, than it will in linguistics, right? And it really has been the faculty leading in terms of knowing what their students need and what they can provide, again, within the context of public health guidelines. And so faculty have been doing the best they can to make sure that they can create as robust a graduate experience as possible for their students, while also being as careful as possible with regard to their health and safety.
So speaking of health and safety, I just want to remind people who may have missed last week's town hall with the provost and the chancellor, where they discussed in great detail the steps the university will be taking to provide for the health and well-being of students and faculty and staff who are on campus. You can find a recording of that event at Campus Conversations. Just do that search, UC Berkeley, Campus Conversations. But Paul, let me come back to you for sort of the issue at hand today, and that's instruction. Getting a lot of people who are asking about the possibility of either going part-time or even withdrawal. Say, maybe not this semester. Let me see how things play out. Can I withdraw and come back at a later time? What's the university's position? What's our answer to questions like that?
Well, first of all, I think Cathy said it at the very beginning of this call, and I so much thought what she said was exactly right. The people who have been admitted, the people who are the students here, you're ready to learn. And I hope this call is convincing you we're ready to teach. We're really committed to doing an outstanding job offering instruction. And so I would urge people to continue with their education and not to put it aside, not to allow time to go by without learning when you're ready to learn, because we will do our utmost to offer a really good experience to the students. And I also just want to try to emphasize that you're joining a community here that is phenomenally inventive. You're going to see lots of things happening. When Lisa describes at least 300 of our graduate student instructors thinking hard about how to do things in a really different way. Our faculty, all of these people, they're going to surprise us with things that people didn't really realize were outstanding ways of doing things. And so this is not a community. Berkeley is not a community that is going to just try to use conventional ways of doing things. It's not our style. And if you want to see, for example, lots of places did virtual commencements. Look at what the students did in the spring, inventing the Berkeley University virtual engagement, which then many of the people here and the chancellor also were part of embedding our graduation into a 3D model of the entire campus with the Berkeley graduation. You're going to see many new ideas. In terms of people wanting to, there may be people who wish to withdraw. We think that would be a mistake. But I also will say we're not able to offer deferrals based on COVID as a reasoning, because frankly, we just have so much demand and so much need for people to learn from us and to go out into the world with that instruction. So we're hoping that you will stay with us and that you'll be a part of a community that learns, that evolves, and that creates in really interesting ways. It will be good.
So we only have a few minutes left, and I want to toss what is a tough but important question for each of you to answer and give your thoughts about. And let me read it. Someone commented that, and I think maybe on Facebook, someone's commented that it seems that we take research and instruction more seriously than the health of our students. What do you say to that? What are the university's priorities? Paul, do you want to take first bite at that one?
Oh, I'm so sorry if we've given that impression. I mean, this is a discussion about how we're going to offer instruction under the circumstances that we're under. But let me just first really emphasize as strongly as I can that we will be extremely proactive about being mindful of everything that we can do to protect the health of our community. And Oliver mentioned that we moved so quickly in March, but I want to emphasize that before the public health authorities had made any decisions around shelter in place, the Berkeley campus had already moved rapidly and quickly to taking a number of actions well before they were mandated by public health authorities to protect the health of our entire community. And everything that we've just talked about today, we've tried to emphasize at the beginning is provisional because we don't know what the exact public health circumstances are going to be in the fall. And we may be obliged to do things differently. At the same time, we do think that if we are able to offer instruction in a way that is consistent with the public health guidelines, that's a better outcome than not offering it. In the world that we live in, we all have to be thoughtful about how we approach the situation that we're in. But I certainly agree with the questioner that the public health and the health of our community is something we do need to just prize as much as we possibly can and to honor every way we can. We just can't stop doing everything else for 2 years.
Got it, Cathy. Same question, but also just some closing thoughts, because that's really all we have time for. But I would like to hear from each of you before we end this event today. Final thoughts about that and any other subject you think it's important for people to consider as they leave today.
I think Paul said it well when to say that this is the time to invest in your education. Those of you who are coming as freshmen are with us for 4 years. There will be an opportunity. Your investment is a 4-year investment, not a 1-semester investment. And I think with respect to the health and safety, there is a balance between our efforts to really create community and have students feel connected, whether they're remote or whether they're in Berkeley. The psychological and emotional part of things is also part of what we're trying to grapple with as a nation, as a community. And I think we're doing the best we can in terms of really paying attention to public health authorities. We will not have in-person instruction if the public health authorities tell us not to. We're working very closely with the city of Berkeley to address those issues. And I think we're very mindful of how important the human connection is, and how important it is to create ways to keep us all connected, to keep us engaged. As Paul says, be inventive, be courageous, be imaginative in what we're doing.
Got it. Lisa, a few closing words for those who are graduate students or deeply involved with graduate students on campus.
I guess the same thing. I think actions speak louder than words. I think it's important that we shut down early. I think it's important that we've been driven by principles of taking care of our students. That's why we've allowed students to stay in housing. For graduate students, they tend to stay in housing, period. But just to say that we are trying to strike that balance in a situation of great uncertainty, of making sure that students come and they learn and they thrive and they do so with as much care for their health and for the community as possible. And so just to say that I know all of the different departments and programs are thinking very deeply about how best to serve their graduate students, how to ensure that they are able to learn and that they're able to feel connected. And then also appreciating that for some folks, coming to campus is actually a safe haven because they may not have a living situation at home that is supportive. And so trying to keep all those factors in mind while appreciating that we're in this for the long haul. As Paul said, at least probably 2 years of disruption. And so within that context, I think it's important for students to be able to have the opportunity to move forward in whatever educational trajectory or accreditation that they want to engage in.
Thanks. Oliver, if you could take the last word. You seem to have a great deal of confidence, and it's inspiring actually about how things are going to look in the fall. Maybe a few closing words about where that confidence comes from and what you're looking forward to as we approach the end of the summer.
I've been a faculty member here for 28 years, and it's been inspiring to see how the campus has responded in the spring. As Paul mentioned, there was a call on a Sunday morning, and the Chancellor held a meeting of the crisis management team. I think it was middle of March. It was before March 17th. And it was decided then that we would go to remote instruction. That was ahead of the shelter in place. And the primary concern was health and safety of the community. And that's always been the first and foremost thing in all of the discussions, in all of the reports, in all of the documents. And I've seen the concern on people's faces about public health back in February and March, when it looked like things were not going, that this pandemic was not disappearing. And since then, I've seen people work tremendously. The staff have been absolutely fantastic. And I think we've all developed a tremendous appreciation for our staff, from our custodians, our student advisors, all the way to the staff in California Hall. People have worked around the clock for the last 6 months to try and help the campus. And that's been inspiring to me. It's also been inspiring to see alumni reach out. So a group of alums reached out to me when they heard that Berkeley students were having trouble and wanted to tutor them. And so they assembled an all-star team of people to tutor students in my department who needed help. That was out of the blue. Another alum contacted me and said that she had a room in her house. She heard that students had no place to live, and she offered the room to a student. And it's behaviors like that that are inspiring and that give me confidence that we will get through the fall and that we will have the flexibility and the nimbleness to deal with whatever comes forward. But our primary concern is health and safety, and I've seen that in everyone's face in meetings, and also the instructional mission of the campus to keep that going, to keep students progressing And we've always put that first. And to me, it's been extraordinary to see. It's been inspiring. And it's really been, you know, an amazing part of being at Berkeley. It's been one of the most extraordinary experiences of my lifetime. And I feel confident that we're going to get through the fall and we're going to see things that we never imagined, and that our students will come up with ideas and ways to cope and ways to deal and ways to communicate that we can only imagine right now. So thank you. And I want to thank everyone for participating on this phone call and for listening to us today.
I want to echo your thanks, Oliver. I want to thank all of our panelists today, Lisa, Paul, Cathy, and Oliver. Incredibly complex subject. And I just want to say to everyone, we recognize we did not get to all of the questions that were presented, all of which are important. I want to share now on my screen some informational resources that you can use going forward, if you'll bear with me for a second. Got some buttons to push here. So let me just run down this list really quickly. For general questions and updates, and there's links to all different parts of the campus, but a good place to start is news.berkeley.edu/coronavirus. For student life, for housing, financial aid, questions in that nature, sa.berkeley.edu/COVID-19. And then for instruction, as we just discussed today, by the end of the month, we will be posting an FAQ. We will keep that FAQ updated on the registrar site. That's registrar.berkeley.edu. Then insofar as future events are concerned, we'll be talking in detail, as we did today, about other areas of where decisions and plans are being announced and are unfolding. Tomorrow we'll be talking about restarting Berkeley's research enterprise from 12 to 1 p.m. And then this coming Thursday, an area that we know there's a lot of interest in because it directly impacts you as students, or if you're a parent, your children. That's a student affairs session. Again, housing, financial aid, engagement, extracurriculars. That's 5 to 6 p.m. And if you want specific information about those events, down at the bottom, you'll see campusconversations.berkeley.edu. We are going to try to answer. We will collect all the questions that came in today that we didn't have time for, attempt to get those answered in a series of FAQs that we'll be updating over the summer. And thank you for joining us. And please stay safe, keep your distance. And thanks to all our panelists. Have a good day.